I don't give a fuck what anyone says on college. I think if you're in college, you shouldn't actually have an opinion about anything. You know, I think that you should probably, even if you had a tough childhood, I think you should probably spend a decade in the workforce. I do, you know, I think, or if not in the workforce, you should just spend a decade hating yourself and becoming fatter and uglier and balder and just, you know, I mean, you should, and then someone you love should leave you. But that said, you know, my biggest problem is not what happens in college campuses, because I try to stay away from college campuses as much as possible, is really just, you know, what happens to language and people's free use of language. I think that you know, speech should be harmful, and defanged speech is not speech. I think speech should always have the power to wound, and I think it should be allowed to wound, because not only is that the right pressure valve that brings you away from actual physical violence, you know, but more importantly, it is it's a preparation for true pain in life, in the sense of, you know, when you are spoken to in a certain way, that's harmful. But when you read a book with content that you consider harmful, right, you can't talk back to it. You can ignore it. You can, you know, tell other people not to read it, right? But the idea of translating our standards for interpersonal speech to a standard for literature, or even just written communication that has stood some test of time, is perverse to me. The whole point of the Greeks is that you never know what your trigger warning is, because it's your hamartia, it's your fatal flaw. If someone told you what your trigger warning was, you probably wouldn't end up, you know, killing your father and sleeping with your mother. You know, I mean, implied in the history of literature, of Western literature, is essentially people who were confronted with people who were not warned, or people who did not heed warnings, right? And these things are supposed to be lessons for us, not to set up our own warnings, but they're actually just supposed to be examples of what life will do to all of us, and maybe consolations for how to abide.